Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm with me, Swiger. This is episode 273, and this month we have been rebroadcasting the most popular episodes ever. This is our very last rebroadcast, so I will be back with new episodes next week. Make sure you've subscribed either on YouTube or on whatever podcast app you're listening to so you don't miss the next new episode. Now, this last rebroadcast I wanted to share with you because it is a problem that impacts us all and that we all deal with, and that's the pressure to be perfect. This is an excellent episode to share with your friends, whether they have a business or not, because this is something we all deal with. So send them to taraswiger.com/podcast273, or hey, take a photo of you listening or of your screen when you're listening, post it on your Instagram, and be sure to tag me. I'm at Swiger. And if you're watching on YouTube, give it a thumbs up or leave a star review on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're listening to. Thank you so much for listening during these rebroadcasts and for celebrating 5 years of the podcast with me, 10 years of my own self-employment. I will be back live next week to share all new episodes with you. Welcome to episode 196 of Explore Your Enthusiasm with me, Swiger. Today we're going to talk about the pressure to be perfect, and at the end of the episode I'm going to share where I'm going to be next because I am traveling all over teaching workshops, so I'm starting to add a new section at the end of each podcast where I tell you where I'll be next. So I've been hearing a lot, the more that I'm out in the world teaching workshops, talking to you all, the more I'm hearing people talk about this pressure from Instagram and Pinterest, especially, and the internet in general, to be perfect, to edit your life perfectly, to have the perfect house and the perfect craft and the perfect hair and to show yourself perfectly. And they talk about this pressure like it's a real thing. And of course, when I first heard people talking about it, I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I felt that too. There is that pressure. And everyone talks about it as if it is uniform and exactly the same, and we are all experiencing the same internet and the same Instagram. But then I was reading through an article in New York Magazine about Instagram influencers in the fashion industry, how fashion companies are now paying influencers, people with large Instagram accounts, to wear their goods, which is something that's going on in every industry, and it makes perfect sense, right? People are paying attention to their phones more than to commercials, so it makes sense to pay the people that you're paying attention to be your new commercials. But the women who follow these fashion influencers, they feel pressure. They feel pressure to have the newest Gucci shoe, the newest Prada purse, the new expensive jewelry. And I reflected that I never feel that pressure. I was reading this article and thinking, I don't feel that. That's crazy. Never have I seen something on a fashion blogger and thought, oh my gosh, I should have that. Now, it may be that I live in East Tennessee, but it's also that I don't follow a lot of fashion accounts and I don't demonstrate my self-identity through high fashion. That's not one way that I'm communicating myself to the world. So it literally never occurs to me to feel any pressure to have anything Louis Vuitton, right? That's just not in my worldview. And I'm betting the same is true for you. From all of my conversations with you, my dear listeners, you're not very likely to feel pressured by fashion influencers. And like me, you might be aghast or confused that anyone does feel any pressure to have really expensive fashion and to go into debt with it. Like, why does it even matter? Who cares? Why are they feeling this pressure? But you do, from what you've told me, feel pressured by home bloggers or DIY queens or #planner addicts to have the perfect, beautiful, clean home, or to DIY everything in your life, or to make your planner really pretty, or to be punk and cool and have made your whole outfit from scratch. Why? Why are we feeling the one pressure but not the other pressure? And this might sound harsh, but bear with me. I am saying this in love, but we feel pressured by these standards because we choose to. Now, this is a red pill moment. There is no pressure. There is no real pressure. You are creating the pressure by the things you're choosing to pay attention to, and then the comparison software program that runs in your head automatically when you compare yourself to someone else, comparing what you see on the internet to your own life. Now, I know, you're like, but no, the pressure is real. That's why we all feel it and we can talk about it and it makes sense. But here's what made me realize that it's not real, is that we're not feeling the same pressure that other women on the internet are feeling. We're not feeling the pressure to have the Louis Vuitton shoes. I don't even know if they make shoes. They might, I don't know. And they're not feeling pressured to have the handmade life. And I went to somebody's birthday party, and everything, her child's first birthday party, everything at the baby's birthday party was handmade, hand sewn, hand stitched cupcakes, literally with like handmade toppers on them. It was beautiful. And she was up late and she said she felt awful about all the things that weren't done. And I just thought, I don't feel ever pressured to do that when people come over to my house. And it's because we're choosing the pressure. Now, you're choosing it based on what you're paying attention to, and the comparison program runs in your head. You allow it to keep running. Now, I'm not saying we don't feel legitimate pressure. I'm not saying the pressure isn't real. I'm saying there's no external pressure. There's not a uniform Instagram telling you you have to be like this. There's a bunch of Instagrams, and we're choosing which ones to pay attention to. We're making the pressure inside our own Instagram feeds and inside our own selves. If you don't believe me, I want you to think about it like this. You are the only person who follows exactly who you follow. No one else follows exactly who you follow. They might follow 4 or 6 or 20 of the same people, and then a bunch of food bloggers or internet business dudes who post about taking a private jet to the beach, or they're following teenagers making duck faces, or fitness bloggers who post daily workouts. So they're getting a whole bunch of different messages about what Instagram or home or life or business should be. So you see, if you're following all fitness bloggers who post daily workouts and are totally buffed and they compete in fitness competitions, then you would be feeling like you need to look like a fitness model. But you don't. You follow DIY people, and so you feel like your life should look more DIY. And if you still don't believe me about this and you're like, no, Tara, the pressure is definitely out there and not inside my own feed, I have no control over this, I want you to look at people who are successful who you don't currently follow and see what they're doing. Do they seem to be following the same rules and the same guidelines you're comparing yourself to, or the people you've been comparing yourself to? So are they beating themselves up for not looking like Elsie and Emma of A Beautiful Mess? Or are they styling themselves like Stephen West of Westnitz? Or posting photos that look like Nagar from Nagar Fanuni, or Christabel of I Am Christabel, or Sarah Tasker of Me and Orla, or Gary V, or Gala Darling, or Yes Please Planning. These are all successful Instagram accounts that look very different from each other, and the people are posting completely different kinds of photos and memes and videos. And if you're comparing yourself to one of the people I just listed, maybe it's A Beautiful Mess, maybe it's Gala Darling, maybe it's Christabel, I want you to go and look at the other ones I mentioned. I want you to look at Me and Orla versus Gary V versus Gala Darling plus versus Yes Please Planning or versus Nagar Fanuni. I want you to look and see that these are all big accounts. These are all successful businesses as far as I know, and they're all really different in content, lifestyle, point of view, thing they're sharing. In order to get that success, they all shared completely different things. So if you go and look at them and you follow them, it can open up your idea of what Instagram needs to be like, what your life needs to be like, what you need to present in your life to be like, because you'll see that that's all different and yet they're still all successful. And I can hear you right now. You're saying, but Tara, if I'm going to operate in this handmade world or this knit design world or build the business I want, then this is the world I'm living in. This is the world I need to pay attention to. I have to know what's out there because my customers will be comparing. This is what people always tell me. I have to live up to what the other people are doing in my industry. So if I'm a knitwear designer, I need to pay attention to Stephen West. Or if I'm a yarn shop, I need to pay attention to what Webbs is doing. Or if I'm a lifestyle blogger, I need to pay attention to what Gala Darling's doing and compare myself to her numbers and what she's posting, and am I posting the same stuff or different? No. First of all, it's a false assumption that your customers and clients are following who you're following. 99% of your customers are not following all the other accounts you follow. In fact, they're more than likely following people they compare themselves to, like Christian's moms with 5 kids who find time to write daily devotionals and have sit-down breakfasts. That's who they're comparing themselves to. Or people who color beautiful coloring book pages compared to what they do. Or women who compete in fitness competitions, or lesbians who take beautiful nature photography and take amazing hikes with their partners. They're comparing themselves to people like themselves, not who you're comparing yourself to. So no, they're not comparing you to the other people like you. They're comparing themselves to other people like themselves, which may be you or it may not. And if you wholesale, then yes, your retailers do know what's happening in your industry, but they care far more that you deliver what you promise on time and that you're easy to work with than if your house looks perfect on your latest Instagram post or that you posted a beautiful shot of your handmade dinner. So let's be honest. Some pressure is not coming from your own internal comparison software. Some comparison is coming from people in your lives. Straight up. There's absolutely societal pressure, cultural pressure, pressure from the people who know you and love you. Maybe your friends talk about their fat thighs, or your mom comments on your kids' clothes, or your neighbor jokes that your lawn could use mowing. There's plenty of pressure to conform to outside expectations in our everyday life. So let's not make more for ourselves. Let's not take something entirely that we have control over, which is our Instagram feed, and use it as a tool to beat ourselves up with. So let's not use social media, which can be a place to connect and learn, as a way to make ourselves feel bad about ourselves. So I know that there's an automatic internal computer program, is how I think of it, in your head that kicks off this comparison trap. You can't even seem to stop it before it's totally swept you away, right? You see something, you compare it to something in your own life, you're immediately feeling bad about it, and then the comparison software really kicks into high drive and compares you to all the other things you're not doing and all the other things you're not being and all the ways that you're falling short. So I want to help you think about how to keep it from even running, and then once it starts running, how to put a stop to it. So number one, who you follow. If who you follow makes you feel bad about yourself, your life, your home, your business, stop following them. That's rule number one. Stop following people that make you feel bad about yourself. Really, even if it's your best friend or your biggest competitor, you can keep the program from running if you don't feed it the images that set it off. Straight up. There are so many people who I actually love in person, and I don't follow on Instagram because I know it would kick off this whole comparison program. I want you to think of magazines. We all know that reading magazines that only show one kind of beauty, one kind of ideal woman, warp our ideas of what's pretty. So then we see normal people, normal-sized people, we compare them to magazine-sized people, and we think there's something wrong with the normal-sized people. Now, a lot of us grow out of this once we grow out of that teenage, constantly comparing ourselves to other people insecurity thing. But if all you ever saw was a skinny 14-year-old blonde girl in magazines, that starts to become the norm of what's beautiful. And your own internal sense of what's beautiful becomes warped, and anybody who doesn't look like that seems no longer beautiful. We know from studies that this happens. If ever we're presented with anything that's the norm, then anything that's not the norm looks wrong. And luckily, like I said, a lot of us grow up, change what we're looking at, read a diversity of magazines, look at a diversity of images, and that's actually the strength of the internet. We control the images. Some editor and guy who hires models control what we see in magazines. We can't control that. We can't control what we see in magazines or commercials or TV shows, what they tell us about beauty or home life or business, but we can control what the internet tells us is the norm. We get to decide what's on our internets every day by who we follow and who we pay attention to and what we pay attention to. So the best advice I can give you if you're starting to feel warped about what's normal in your home or your business or your body or your beauty is to change it up. Fill your feed with a diversity of images, a diversity of people, of ways of running a handmade business, of content, of ideas, of quotes, of whatever. Fill it up with a bunch of different stuff. If you're following 50 #planner addicts, then stop. If it makes you feel bad that your planner isn't prettier, and instead of making your planner pretty, you actually go out and do stuff, stop following the people who are making you feel bad, and instead pay attention to someone like me who writes a scribbled to-do list every day, and I get a lot of stuff done, and it's not pretty. If you think your house isn't nice enough because you can't afford to buy anything except Target, follow someone who has 10 dogs. Follow a food blogger who never shows her house. Follow someone who's doing something else amazing in their life and it has nothing to do with a clean or fancy house they keep. The same thing with your handmade good. If you're following a bunch of other people who make bags or knitting patterns or jewelry and they're making you feel bad because your company isn't as big, you don't have as many followers, your models aren't as whatever, then maybe you don't even have modeled shots. Then stop following them and start following someone else that does something else. So You can, to get a idea of the diversity of sites you follow, you can check out the people I listed earlier. I'm going to link them all up at the show notes, which you'll find at tarswiger.com/podcast196. Follow those different accounts and then see who they highlight on their accounts or who comments on their accounts and go follow them. Spread out what you're doing. If you follow all women in the handmade world, go follow some dudes. Dudes that hand make, dudes that have fancy internet businesses that talk about jetting off to beaches. Like, how many of those are out there? How many young men are comparing themselves with those business gurus, not even realizing the internet could be pressuring them to just keep a better home? So realize that your decision about who you follow is part of this pressure that you feel to live up to something. So change that. Change the input of the computer program. And then the second step is when it kicks in, stop it. Make this a part of something that you willfully and do, that you pay attention to, that you're conscious of. Part of this pressure that's in our head is there because we keep feeding it. We keep saying, oh, I do need to be like that. Yes, I do. And we talk about it and we share it with other people and we compare and we compare and we keep it going all the time. Not just with who we follow, but what we keep thinking about. So if you notice your comparison software starts to run, stop it. Here's the thing, that when we've talked about emotions and how emotions are made in past episodes, you realize you get to choose your next thought. You don't get to choose every thought that pops into your head, but you get to choose where you go with it, what you follow, what train you get on. The Headspace app says that your thoughts are like you standing next to a busy street and the cars are going by. You get to decide if you get in the car or not. Now, you might get in the car and realize halfway down the road, wait, I was trying not to get in the car. So you could jump out of the car. Just jump out of the car. So do you go deeper down the path of flogging your imperfections and comparing yourself? Do you fret and spiral? If so, stop. Choose another thought as soon as you realize it's happening. Don't beat yourself up for the spiral that you went down, for the flogging that you did. Just choose to go a different way, to get out of the car. It's hard to change your thoughts. Super hard. But it's easier to change your outer environment and your body, like physically. And changing one often changes the other. So stand up, get off the internet, go journal, make a cup of tea, pour a cup of LaCroix. Do something to change something in your external environment, and it will change your internal pathways. So don't keep telling yourself, OMG, I have to blah, blah, blah because that person did it, and I have to be that, and I have to do that. This isn't as good as so-and-so's. It's totally normal to have those thoughts. What's up to you is what you do next. So I'm not saying that if you follow a bunch of different people, you're never going to compare yourself ever again. I'm saying that when you feel yourself start to go down that path, use this episode as a reminder that you get to choose how much further you go down that path. If you decide you're going to live in a universe where Instagram tells you who you have to be, or if you're going to live in a universe where you think, well, that's a different person than me, I'm not going to go down the path of comparing myself. And the more often you stop yourself from going down that path, the more often you get out of the car and you stop staying in it, the easier and easier it gets to see it. Since I wrote this post a couple days ago, by the way, I woke up in the middle of the night with this post in my head. So when I got out of bed that morning, I wrote it all down. And since I did, I have noticed so many times I start to go down the path. So many times I start to compare myself. And just by writing about it and thinking about it, I made it easier for me to notice. And then the next step is to stop. So this is your prescription. Stop following those who you have the hardest time comparing yourself to. Like I said, there are people on the internet I love who are my friends in real life that I can't follow their Instagram because I just feel bad about my life or my business. That's okay. It doesn't mean we're not friends. I'm just not going to follow their Instagram. Then follow a variety of people doing Instagram in a really different way, or doing their business in a really different way, or presenting themselves in a really different way. 3, when it happens, choose another thought. Remember, you have the choice. And the easiest way to choose another thought is to do something different. Stand up, go for a walk, look out the window, get a drink of water, shake it all out. That's one of the things me and Jay love to do, is like literally have a toddler temper tantrum to change your mood. Is you just like flail around, or you can do the thing our dog does when he's calming himself down, which is a deep, loud sigh. Raylan does it every time he lays down after he's been anxious. And when you do that a couple times, you'll feel that tension leave your body. There's actually studies that doing that actually changes your physical state, which helps change your emotions. So I want to hear how you handle this. Come tell me on Instagram and tell me Another thing I didn't even think to say is another way to change your physical environment is to smell an essential oil. Those go right up to your brain, your limbic system, and help you shift your mood, which can help you shift your thoughts. So when you're getting up, you're getting a drink, open up a bottle, take a sniff, put something new in the diffuser. That's what I do. If I need to change my mood, is I change out the diffuser. And I want to hear, what are the things that you do to change your thoughts? What are the steps you take to manage that comparison trap software? What blends do you like? What essential blends do you like to change your mood? Come to Instagram. I'm Tara Swiger on Instagram and tell me, or you can come see me in person. I'm going to be teaching workshops in Seattle all this weekend from Thursday through Saturday of when you're hearing this podcast episode, the week of first week in March 2018. So come see me. I have linked up the events in the show notes, which you'll find however you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes, or you will find it at my website, taraswiger.com/podcast196. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a day full of enthusiasm and no comparison.